Captain Hyunwoo Park stood at the main window of his ship, watching the alien vessel grow larger in the darkness of space. The Harmony's Edge had traveled for 3 months to reach this meeting point, far from any human colony. This was humanity's first official contact with the Kethvar Empire, and Hyunwoo felt the weight of history on his shoulders. "Captain, they're requesting permission to dock," said Communications Officer Hana Shin from her station. Her voice was steady, but Hyunwoo could see the tension in her hands as she worked the controls. "Grant permission," Hyunwoo replied. "Tell them we're ready to meet." The Kethvar ship was unlike anything humans had ever built. It looked more grown than constructed, with smooth curves and a surface that seemed to shimmer like water. There were no visible weapons, but something about the ship felt powerful and ancient. Dr. So-Young Kim walked up beside the captain. She was the mission's lead xenobiologist, chosen because she had studied every piece of information about the Kethvar that humanity had gathered. "The docking is going smoothly," she said. "Their technology is incredible. The way their ship moves, it's like it's thinking." "Maybe it is," said Jin-Ho Lee, joining them at the window. As the mission's military advisor, Jin-Ho was responsible for keeping everyone safe. He didn't trust easily, especially when it came to aliens who could read minds. "We know they're telepaths. Who knows what else they can do?" Hyunwoo nodded. The Kethvar had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. They were older than human civilization, more advanced and more powerful. But they had asked for this meeting, not demanded it. That gave Hyunwoo hope. "Remember the plan," Hyunwoo said to his team. "We're here to talk, to learn, and to show them that humans can be trusted. But we stay careful." The docking process finished with a soft vibration through the ship's hull. On the communication screen, Hana confirmed that the airlocks had sealed properly. The moment had arrived. Hyunwoo led his small team to the meeting room they had prepared. It was simple but comfortable, with a large table and chairs for both species. They had studied Kethvar biology as much as possible, but there was still so much they didn't know. The airlock door opened with a hiss, and the first Kethvar stepped through. The alien was tall, much taller than any human, with long limbs and pale skin that seemed to glow faintly in the ship's lights. Their head was elongated and their eyes were larger than human eyes, completely black with no visible pupils. When they moved, it was with a fluid grace that seemed almost impossible. "I am Velthara," the alien said, though their mouth barely moved. The words seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I speak for the Kethvar Empire in this first meeting between our peoples." Hyunwoo stepped forward. "I am Captain Hyunwoo Park, representing humanity. Welcome aboard our ship." 2 more Kethvar entered behind Velthara. They were similar in appearance but smaller, and they said nothing. Their black eyes seemed to take in everything about the room and the humans in it. "We have heard much about your species," Velthara continued. "You have spread across many worlds in a very short time. This is unusual. We're explorers by nature," So-Young said. "We're curious about the universe and want to learn from other species like yours." Velthara tilted their head in what might have been interest. "Learning is good. Understanding is better. This is why we have come." The conversation continued for an hour, covering basic topics like trade, territory, and peaceful coexistence. The Kethvar seemed genuinely interested in establishing good relations with humanity. But Hyunwoo noticed that they kept their distance, never getting too close to any of the humans. Finally, Velthara stood. "Before we can proceed further, we must complete the joining." "The joining?" Hyunwoo asked. "It is our way," Velthara explained. "When 2 species meet for the first time, minds must touch. We must see into each other's thoughts to know that peace is truly intended. Without this, we cannot trust." Jin-Ho tensed beside Hyunwoo. They had known this might happen, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real and frightening. "Is it safe?" So-Young asked. Her scientific curiosity was fighting with her natural caution. "For us, yes," Velthara said. "We have done this with many species. It is a simple touch of consciousness, lasting only moments. You will feel our peaceful intentions, and we will feel yours." The alien approached the table and extended one long, pale hand. "Who among you will join with me?" Hyunwoo started to step forward, but So-Young moved faster. "I will," she said. "As a scientist, I'm probably the best choice to experience and document this." "So-Young, we don't know what this might do to you," Jin-Ho warned. "That's exactly why I should be the one," she replied. "If something goes wrong, I'll be able to understand it better than anyone else." Hyunwoo looked at his team, then at Velthara. "Will she be harmed?" No, Velthara said with certainty. The joining is safe. We have touched the minds of the Zephyrians, the Mechanoids, the Stellar Collective. All was peaceful. So Young sat down at the table and placed her hands flat on its surface. What do I need to do? Simply remain calm, Velthara said, moving around the table to stand behind her. Do not resist. Let your mind be open. The alien placed their long fingers on either side of So Young's head just above her ears. The pale skin seemed to become even more translucent, and soft lights began to pulse beneath the surface. Beginning the joining, Velthara announced. For a moment, nothing happened. So Young sat perfectly still, her eyes closed, breathing slowly and evenly. Velthara's fingers glowed brighter, and the other two Kethvar moved closer, as if they were somehow participating in the process. Then everything changed. Velthara's black eyes widened in what could only be shock. The lights under their skin began flashing rapidly, chaotically. Their mouth opened, but no sound came out. So Young, Hyunwoo called, moving toward her. So Young's eyes snapped open, but she looked confused and dazed. I can feel them, she whispered. But something's wrong. Velthara stumbled backward, their hands flying away from So Young's head as if burned. The alien's whole body began to shake, and the other two Kethvar rushed to support them. What's happening? Jinho demanded, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. Velthara tried to speak, but only a strangled sound came out. The lights under their skin were flashing so rapidly now that it looked like a storm was raging beneath the surface. Their black eyes rolled back, showing something that might have been white underneath. Help them, So Young shouted, standing up quickly. Something went wrong. The other two Kethvar were speaking rapidly in their own language, high-pitched sounds that seemed to come from deep in their throats. One of them touched Velthara's forehead, then immediately jerked their hand away with what sounded like a cry of pain. Velthara collapsed to the floor, their long limbs twitching uncontrollably. The alien's mouth opened wide, and a sound came out that no human throat could have made. A sound of pure terror and anguish that seemed to fill the entire room. Get the medical team, Hyunwoo ordered Hana, who was already reaching for her communicator. Captain, Jinho said urgently, we need to be ready for anything. If they think we attacked their leader. But as Hyunwoo looked down at the writhing alien on his ship's floor, he realized that whatever had just happened, it wasn't an attack by humans. It was something far worse, something that no one had expected, something that would change everything between their species forever. The medical bay of the Harmony's Edge had never seen anything like this. Velthara lay on the examination table, their tall body still shaking. The alien's pale skin continued to flash with chaotic lights, like a broken computer screen. Dr. Youngmin Choi, the ship's chief medical officer, stood helplessly beside the table with his human medical equipment, knowing none of it would work on alien biology. So Young Kim sat on another bed nearby, holding her head in her hands. She looked pale and shaken, but physically unharmed. I don't understand what happened, she said for the 10th time. It felt normal at first. I could sense their mind touching mine, just like they said. It was peaceful. Captain Hyunwoo stood between the two beds, trying to make sense of the situation. The other two Kethvar, who had identified themselves as Zektar and Morden, huddled near their leader. They wouldn't let any humans get close, but they also seemed unable to help. Tell me again what you felt, Hyunwoo said to So Young. At first it was like hearing a very calm voice in my head, So Young explained. Velthara's mind felt organized, peaceful, structured, like a library where everything has its proper place. Then they started looking deeper into my thoughts, and that's when... She stopped, pressing her palms against her temples. When what? Dr. Youngmin asked gently. When everything went wrong. I felt them recoil like they had touched something burning hot. But from my side, it felt like they were running away from something in my mind. Jinho Lee paced near the door, his hand never far from his weapon. This could be some kind of trick, he said. Maybe this is how they attack us. No, So Young said firmly. I was connected to them when it happened. Their terror was real. They were genuinely frightened by something they found in my head. Velthara made a weak sound from the examination table. Zektar quickly moved to their leader's side and placed their hands on Velthara's forehead. After a moment, Zektar looked up at the humans with what seemed like accusation in their black eyes. What did you do? Zektar demanded. Unlike Velthara's smooth telepathic communication, Zektar spoke with their mouth, and their accent made the words sound harsh and alien. We didn't do anything, Hyunwoo replied. Your leader initiated the contact. We followed your procedures exactly. Impossible, Morden said, speaking for the first time. The joining is safe. We have performed it with dozens of species across the galaxy. Never has there been injury. Dr. Youngmin stepped forward carefully. May I examine Velthara? I'm a doctor. I might be able to help. Both aliens moved protectively in front of their leader. You cannot touch them, Zektar said. Your minds are dangerous. Our minds? So Young asked, standing up despite her obvious exhaustion. What do you mean? Zektar and Morden exchanged looks, communicating in some way the humans couldn't see or hear. Finally, Morden spoke. When Velthara touched your consciousness, they found chaos, Morden said. Not the ordered thoughts of a civilized mind, but a storm of conflicting ideas, violent images, and primitive fears. That's not possible, Jinho protested. So Young is one of the calmest, most rational people I know. Your surface thoughts were calm, Zektar agreed. But beneath them, Velthara found layers of darkness. Memories of violence, fears of death, images of creatures hunting in the night. And worse, the alien stopped speaking as if the words themselves were painful. Worse what? Hyunwoo asked. Velthara saw that your species enjoys violence, Morden said quietly. You create stories about killing, about war, about monsters. You watch these stories for entertainment. In your mind, we found memories of images where beings suffer and die, and you watched willingly. So Young's face went red. You mean movies, books? Those are fiction. They're not real. To us, there is no difference, Zektar said. To imagine violence is to commit violence. To enjoy stories of suffering is to enjoy suffering. Your mind contained thousands of these dark imaginings. Dr. Youngmin frowned. But humans have always told stories. It's how we process fears and learn to deal with danger. It doesn't mean we're violent people. Your storytelling is not the worst part, Morden continued. Velthara also found your capacity for contradiction. You can love and hate the same person. You can want peace while preparing for war. You can show kindness while thinking cruel thoughts. This duality broke Velthara's understanding. Captain Hyunwoo realized they were dealing with something far more serious than a medical emergency. Are you saying that human minds are somehow harmful to your species? We do not know, Zektar admitted. This has never happened before. All other species have minds that are comprehensible, ordered. Their thoughts follow logical patterns. But humans? Velthara stirred on the examination table and made a weak attempt to speak. Morden immediately went to their side, placing both hands on the leader's head. After a moment of silent communication, Morden's face showed what could only be described as horror. What did they say? So Young asked. Morden looked at the humans with something between fear and disgust. Velthara says that touching your mind was like falling into a pit of screaming voices. They experienced your memories of nightmares, your knowledge of pain, your understanding of death. But most terrible was your acceptance of these things. Where other species fear death and avoid thoughts of violence, humans embrace them as part of life. We don't embrace them, So Young protested. We know they exist. We've learned to live with them. This is what Velthara cannot understand, Zektar said. How can a mind contain such darkness and still function? How can a being know of suffering and not be consumed by it? The contradiction has damaged their ability to think clearly. Dr. Youngmin moved closer to the alien leader, despite the protective postures of the other Kethvar. In human medicine, we call this psychological trauma. It happens when someone experiences something their mind cannot process, but it can be treated. You wish to touch Velthara's mind again? Morden asked in alarm. No, not mentally. We have other ways to help with trauma. Medication, therapy, gradual exposure to reduce the fear response. You have experience with minds that break from contact with humans? Zektar asked with interest. Dr. Youngmin paused. Well, no. But we have experience with minds that break from experiencing terrible things. The principles should be similar. On the examination table, Velthara suddenly sat up, their black eyes wide and staring. They spoke directly to the humans, though their mental voice was weak and shaky. How do you live with such chaos in your heads? Velthara asked. How do you function when your minds contain both love and hate, hope and despair, kindness and cruelty? So Young approached the table slowly. Because that's what makes us human, she said. We're not perfect. We have dark thoughts and fears, but we choose how to act. We can think about violence without being violent. We can imagine terrible things without doing them. But the images in your mind, Velthara said, their voice filled with confusion. You have seen so much suffering, yet you continue to function. You know of death, yet you do not hide from life. This is impossible. No, So Young said gently. This is strength. Velthera stared at her for a long moment, then collapsed back onto the table. I do not understand, they whispered. I do not understand anything about your species. Captain Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. If the Kethvar couldn't understand humans, if human minds were genuinely harmful to them, what would that mean for relations between their species? And more importantly, what would the Kethvar Empire do about a species they considered mentally dangerous? The communication system chimed and Hana's voice came through the speakers. Captain, we're receiving multiple signals from the Kethvar ship. It sounds like they're calling for help. Jinho's hand moved to his weapon. Sir, we might have a problem. As if summoned by his words, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The situation was escalating beyond anyone's control. And in the medical bay, Velthera began to shake again, their mind still trying to process the impossible chaos they had found in human consciousness. The emergency meeting in the conference room felt like a war council. Captain Hyun-woo sat at the head of the table, studying the reports that had been flooding in for the past 6 hours. Across from him, Communications Officer Ha-na looked exhausted from monitoring the constant stream of alien transmissions. The signals are getting stronger, Ha-na reported. The Kethvar ship has sent out at least 50 different messages since the incident. Most are in their language, but our computers have translated some basic concepts. Danger, contamination, mental plague. Jinho Lee stood by the wall display, which showed a tactical view of nearby space, and we're picking up movement from multiple sectors. At least 12 Kethvar ships are changing course toward our position. Are they coming to help or to attack? Dr. Youngmin asked. He had spent the last few hours working with Zektar and Morden, trying to stabilize Velthera's condition. Unknown, Jinho replied. But given that they're calling us a mental plague, I'm not optimistic. So Young Kim entered the room looking tired but alert. She had been working with linguist Yoon Ji-yoon to analyze everything they had learned from the telepathic contact. I've been thinking about what happened, she said, taking a seat. I think I understand why Velthara reacted so badly. Explain, Hyun-woo said. The Kethvar have been telepaths for thousands of years, So Young began. Every species they've ever met has had ordered, logical thought patterns. When they perform their joining ceremony, they expect to find minds that think like theirs. Calm, structured, predictable. She activated the wall display, showing a diagram she had created. But human minds evolved differently. We spent millions of years as prey animals, always watching for predators. Our brains developed the ability to imagine terrible scenarios so we could prepare for them. We think about death so we can avoid it. We consider violence so we can defend against it. So our survival instincts make us mentally incompatible with telepaths? Hyun-woo asked. Not just incompatible, So Young said. Dangerous. Imagine if you lived your whole life listening to peaceful music, and then suddenly someone played heavy metal directly into your brain at maximum volume. But instead of just loud music, it's every dark thought, every nightmare, every violent image that humans have ever used to prepare for danger. Yoon Ji-yoon, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. There's something else. The Kethvar language has no words for internal conflict. They don't understand how someone can want two different things at the same time, or how you can love someone and be angry with them simultaneously. Because they're telepaths, Dr. Youngmin said with understanding. If you can read minds, you never develop the need to hide your true feelings or deal with contradictory emotions. Exactly, So Young agreed. We humans are masters of internal contradiction. We've had to be, because we can't read each other's minds. We've learned to live with complexity, ambiguity, and mixed emotions. To the Kethvar, this makes us seem insane. The door opened and Zektar entered with 2 human guards. The alien looked even more pale than usual, and their movements seemed careful and controlled. We must speak, Zektar announced. The situation grows worse, Hyun-woo gestured to a chair. Please sit. How is Velthara? Alive but changed, Zektar said, remaining standing. They cannot stop seeing the images from your mind. Every time they try to think clearly, they remember the chaos they found in human consciousness. They speak of monsters in the dark, of creatures with teeth and claws. These are not memories from their own life. Those are from human mythology and entertainment, So Young explained. Stories we tell about imaginary creatures. Imaginary? Zektar's voice rose. To Velthara, they are real. Your mind made them real. How can you create such detailed images of suffering and call them imaginary? Dr. Youngmin leaned forward. Because imagination is how humans process fear. We think about scary things in a safe environment so we can handle them if they happen in real life. This makes no sense, Zektar said, beginning to pace. To think of violence is to invite violence. To imagine suffering is to create suffering. How can your species function with such chaotic thoughts? We've been asking ourselves the same question about you, Jinho said bluntly. How can your species function when you're all connected mentally? How do you have any privacy or individual thoughts? Zektar stopped pacing and stared at Jinho. Privacy? Individual thoughts? These concepts are disturbing. Why would anyone want to be alone in their mind? The cultural gap was becoming clear to everyone in the room. The two species had evolved in fundamentally different ways, and neither could truly understand the other. Hana's communication system chimed urgently. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the approaching Kethvar fleet. They want to speak with you directly. Put it through, Hyunwoo said. The main screen flickered and an image appeared of another Kethvar, this one larger and more imposing than any they had seen. Their pale skin seemed to have a red tinge and their black eyes held what looked like anger. I am war leader Naltorix of the Kethvar Empire, the alien said. You will surrender immediately. We haven't attacked anyone, Hyunwoo replied calmly. We came here for peaceful negotiations. Peaceful? Naltorix's mental voice carried fury. You have infected one of our greatest telepaths with madness. The corruption is spreading through our communication network. Already 12 other Kethvar have been affected by the mental contamination that Velthara carries. Zektar gasped and immediately pressed their hands to their head. It's true, they said. I can feel it. The chaos is spreading to other minds through our telepathic links. So Young stood up quickly. That's not possible. Human thoughts can't spread like a disease. For telepathic species they can, Naltorix said. Velthara's broken mind is transmitting fragments of human consciousness to every Kethvar they contact. We are experiencing your nightmares, your violent fantasies, your ability to love and hate simultaneously. It is destroying our social order. What do you want from us? Hyunwoo asked. You will submit to mental conditioning, Naltorix demanded. We will remove the chaotic elements from your minds. Make your thoughts orderly and safe. Then you may join the galactic community as proper beings. The room fell silent. Finally, Jinho spoke. And if we refuse? Then you will be eliminated before your mental plague spreads to other species. Dr. Youngmin stepped forward. War leader. We understand you're frightened, but we can work together to solve this problem. We have experience treating trauma and mental distress. You wish to treat us? Naltorix asked with what might have been amusement. You are the disease, not the cure. No, So Young said firmly. We're not a disease. We're just different. Our minds work differently than yours, but that doesn't make us wrong or dangerous. 12 of our people are now experiencing what you call nightmares, Naltorix replied. They speak of fears they have never known, of violence they have never imagined. How is this not dangerous? Because those fears and that understanding of violence are what made us strong, So Young said. They're what helped us survive and grow as a species. Naltorix leaned forward on the screen. You believe chaos makes you strong? I believe understanding darkness helps us appreciate light, So Young replied. Knowing about danger helps us avoid it. Accepting that we're capable of both good and evil helps us choose to be good. This is madness, Naltorix said. You will be given one standard day to surrender for mental conditioning. If you refuse, our fleet will ensure that your chaotic minds never touch another telepathic species again. The transmission ended, leaving the conference room in heavy silence. Captain, Jinho said quietly, what are our options? Hyunwoo looked around the table at his team, then at Zektar, who was still holding their head as if in pain. We find a third option, he said finally. We prove that human mental chaos isn't a weakness to be cured. How? Dr. Youngmin asked. Hyunwoo looked at So Young. We show them that our chaos is actually our strength. The next 18 hours passed in a blur of desperate activity. Captain Hyunwoo had split his team into groups, each working on a different part of their desperate plan. In the ship's main laboratory, Dr. So Young Kim worked alongside engineer Dong-Hyun Jang to create something that had never been attempted before. The filtering system is almost ready, Donghyun reported, adjusting a complex array of sensors and processors. It should be able to separate surface thoughts from deeper mental patterns. The theory is sound, So-young agreed, but we won't know if it works until we test it. Across the lab, communications specialist Hana Shin was working with linguist Yoon Ji-yoon on an equally important task. They had spent hours with Zektar and Morden, learning basic Kethvar body language and vocal patterns. It's fascinating, Yoonji said, making notes on her tablet. They've relied on telepathy for so long that they barely use physical communication. But the ability is still there, buried under thousands of years of disuse. Zektar, who had volunteered to help despite the risk to their own mental health, demonstrated a gesture that meant peaceful intention in their species' ancient sign language. This was used before we became full telepaths, they explained. Now it feels strange to move my body to communicate thoughts. In the medical bay, Dr. Youngmin Choi was working on the most delicate part of their plan. Velthara lay on the examination table, conscious but still visibly shaken. The alien leader's skin continued to flash with irregular patterns of light. The human doctor wishes to help, Morden translated, though they remained suspicious. But how can he treat a mind he cannot touch? We have techniques that don't require mental contact, Dr. Youngmin explained patiently. In human medicine, we've learned to help people who have experienced trauma. We can teach Velthara to manage the chaotic images without being overwhelmed by them. Velthara's mental voice was weak but curious. How do humans manage such chaos every day? Practice, So-young said, entering the medical bay. We start learning as children. We read scary stories, watch action movies, play games that simulate danger. We gradually expose ourselves to imaginary threats so that real ones don't break us. You deliberately traumatize your young, Morden asked with horror. We prepare them, So-young corrected. There's a difference between controlled exposure and real trauma. In the ship's tactical center, Jin Ho Lee was coordinating with Admiral Tae Hyun Song, who commanded the small human fleet that had followed the Harmony's edge at a distance. The Admiral's image filled the communication screen, his expression grim. The Kethvar fleet now numbers 18 ships, Admiral Tae Hyun reported. They've taken position around your location. Our intelligence suggests they have enough firepower to destroy a small planet. What about reinforcements? Jin Ho asked. The nearest human fleet is 6 days away. You're on your own. Captain Hyunwoo entered the tactical center, having finished his own preparations. Then we'll have to make this work. Captain, Jin Ho said quietly. Are you sure about this plan? If it fails, we're all dead anyway, Hyunwoo replied. At least this way, we have a chance to change how our species are perceived. The captain activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is Captain Park. In 4 hours, we will attempt something that has never been done before. We're going to prove that humanity's mental chaos is not a weakness, but a strength. I need everyone to be ready. In the laboratory, So-young was putting the finishing touches on their experimental device. It looked like a headset combined with a computer interface designed to filter and process telepathic contact. The system should isolate different layers of consciousness, she explained to the gathered team. Instead of experiencing all human thoughts at once, the Kethvar will be able to see them in organized patterns. Will it work? Eunji asked. There's only one way to find out, So-young replied. Donghyun ran final diagnostics on the equipment. The hardware is stable. The software is, well, we're dealing with consciousnesses that we don't fully understand. It's the best we can do. Hana received an incoming transmission. Captain, War Leader Nal Torix is demanding a response. The deadline is approaching. Tell them we're ready to demonstrate something, Hyunwoo said. Request permission to show them why human mental chaos shouldn't be feared. They're responding, Hana said after a moment. Nal Torix will allow a brief demonstration, but their weapons remain trained on us. In the medical bay, Velthara had been listening to the preparations. Despite their trauma, they seemed intrigued by the human approach to their crisis. You face certain death, Velthara observed. Yet you work to understand rather than fight. This is another contradiction in human thinking. Not a contradiction, Dr. Youngmin said. A choice. We could fight, but we'd prefer to communicate. Even when communication caused this problem. Especially then, So-young said, entering with the experimental headset. We believe the problem came from miscommunication, not communication itself. The moment had arrived. In the main conference room, The human team assembled around their makeshift equipment. Zektar and Morden stood nearby, ready to assist if needed. On the main screen, War Leader Naltorix waited with obvious impatience. "You have 10 minutes, Naltorix announced. "Show us how your chaotic minds can possibly be beneficial." So Young sat down and placed the experimental headset on her head. The device hummed to life, and displays around the room showed various readings of her brain activity. "The difference between us," she began, speaking to Naltorix, "is not that we're more violent or chaotic. The difference is that we've learned to live with chaos instead of avoiding it." She activated the filtering system and nodded to Zektar. "Touch my mind now, but through the device." Zektar approached cautiously and placed their fingers on the headset's interface points. Immediately, their expression changed from fear to curiosity. "I can see your thoughts," Zektar said with wonder. "But they are organized, separated into layers." "Show them the fear layer first," So Young instructed. On the screen, Naltorix leaned forward as Zektar described what they were experiencing. "I see memories of danger, images of threats, knowledge of pain and death, but it is contained, controlled." "Now show them how we use that fear," So Young said. The device shifted to a different mental layer. "Now I see. Planning, preparation. You use the fear knowledge to make decisions to avoid real danger." "Exactly," So Young said. "We don't experience chaos. We use chaos. We take our fears and turn them into wisdom." "Show them the creativity layer," Dr. Youngmin suggested. Zektar's eyes widened. This is impossible. You take violent images and transform them into stories that teach lessons. You use dark thoughts to create art that brings light." Naltorix's expression on the screen had changed from anger to confusion. "What is the alien seeing?" "They're seeing how humans process trauma and fear," So Young explained. "We don't just experience terrible things and break. We experience them, learn from them, and use that knowledge to help ourselves and others." "Show them the empathy layer," Yunji suggested. I see how you understand others without telepathy," Zektar said. Their voice filled with amazement. "You watch faces, listen to voices, observe movements. You have learned to read minds without touching them." "This is how we survived as a species," So Young said. "We couldn't read each other's thoughts, so we had to become experts at understanding each other in different ways." Naltorix was silent for a long moment. Finally, they spoke. "What you are showing me suggests that chaos can be controlled? Directed? Not controlled," So Young corrected. "Accepted and used. We don't fight our chaotic thoughts. We embrace them and find ways to make them useful." Velthara's voice came through the communication system from the medical bay. "War Leader, I request permission to experience this filtered contact myself." "Absolutely not," Naltorix replied. "You are already damaged." "I am healing," Velthara said firmly, "and I believe these humans may have something to teach us." The demonstration continued for several more minutes, with Zektar exploring different aspects of human consciousness through the filtering device. With each layer they examined, their understanding grew. Finally, So Young removed the headset. "War Leader Naltorix, we're not asking you to become like us. We're asking you to understand that different doesn't mean dangerous." Naltorix stared at the screen for a long time. "This device you have created, it allows safe contact between our species?" "It's a start," So Young admitted. "With more work, we could develop better ways for our species to communicate. And you would share this technology freely?" "Of course," Captain Hyunwoo said. "Our goal has always been peaceful cooperation." Naltorix's image flickered as they consulted with others off-screen. When they returned their attention to the humans, their expression had softened slightly. "You have given us much to consider," they said finally. "The fleet will withdraw while we discuss these revelations." As the transmission ended, the human team felt the first stirring of hope they had experienced in days. They had proven that chaos could be strength. Now they had to prove it could also be the foundation for peace. 3 weeks had passed since the first contact crisis, and the Harmony's Edge had become something neither species had expected: a laboratory for understanding the impossible. Captain Hyunwoo stood in the ship's expanded laboratory, watching as Dr. So Young Kim worked with Velthara on their third filtered telepathic session of the day. The alien leader had changed dramatically since that first traumatic contact. Their pale skin still flickered with lights, but now the patterns were more controlled, more purposeful. They had learned to process human mental chaos without being overwhelmed by it. Today I want to try something different, So Young said, adjusting the filtering headset. Instead of just showing you human thoughts, I want to experience Kethvar consciousness. Velthara hesitated. Are you certain? Our minds may be as alien to you as yours are to us. That's exactly why we need to try, So Young replied. True understanding requires experiencing both perspectives. Engineer Dong Hyun Jang monitored the equipment while Dr. Young Min Choi stood ready with medical assistance. Over the past weeks, they had refined the filtering technology significantly, but this would be their first attempt at reverse contact. Initiating contact, Velthara announced, placing their fingers on the interface points. So Young's eyes closed as the connection established. For a moment, her face showed confusion, then wonder, then something approaching awe. It's like being part of a vast ocean, she whispered. I can feel thousands of other minds, all connected, all sharing thoughts and emotions. There's no loneliness, no isolation. Velthara's mental voice was gentle. This is how we have always lived. We are never alone with our thoughts. But how do you maintain individuality? So Young asked. How do you have personal opinions or private feelings? We do not, Velthara admitted. Until meeting your species, we did not understand why anyone would want such things. Through the filtered connection, So Young began to understand the profound differences between their species. The Kethvar had evolved in a world where telepathic connection was natural and essential. They had never needed to develop individual resilience because they had always had the collective to support them. In the conference room, a gathering was taking place that would have been impossible just weeks earlier. War leader Naltorix sat at the table with Captain Hyunwoo, while other Kethvar officers participated through telepathic link. Linguist Yoon Ji-yoon and communications specialist Hana Shin were teaching the aliens non-telepathic communication methods. The facial expression indicates disagreement, Yoonji explained, demonstrating a frown. Humans often communicate complex emotions without words. One of the Kethvar officers, whose name was Thekmore, attempted to copy the expression. The result was unsettling but recognizable. This is inefficient, they observed. Why not simply share the disagreement directly? Because sometimes, Jinho Lee said, people need time to form their own opinions before sharing them. Independent thought formation, Naltorix mused. We are beginning to understand this concept. It is disturbing but also intriguing. Back in the laboratory, So Young was experiencing something no human had ever felt before. True telepathic unity. Through Velthara's connection to the Kethvar network, she could sense the collective consciousness of their species. I understand now why our chaos frightened you, she said. Your minds are like a symphony, with every instrument playing in harmony. Human thoughts must sound like noise to you. Not noise, Velthara corrected. Jazz music, So Young opened her eyes in surprise. Jazz music? It is a human art form we have studied, Velthara explained. It appears chaotic and random, but it follows its own complex patterns. Your minds are similar, chaotic on the surface but with underlying structures we are learning to appreciate. Dr. Young Min approached the testing area. How are you feeling? Any discomfort or confusion? Actually, I feel calm, So Young said with surprise. Being connected to the Kethvar collective is like having access to infinite wisdom and support. I can see why they never developed individual resilience. They never needed it. And I am learning to appreciate the strength that comes from standing alone with one's thoughts, Velthara added. Through filtered contact with So Young's mind, I have experienced what you call determination, the ability to continue despite fear and uncertainty. The door opened, and Zektar entered with a group of younger Kethvar. Over the past weeks, more aliens had volunteered to experience controlled contact with human consciousness. The results had been remarkable. The volunteer program is expanding, Zektar reported. 43 Kethvar have now experienced filtered human contact. 7 have requested to learn non-telepathic communication skills. Any negative effects? Dr. Young Min asked. On the contrary, Zektar said. Those who have experienced human mental patterns report increased creativity, improved problem-solving abilities, and what they describe as mental flexibility. One of the younger Kethvar, named Peknal, stepped forward. I have been practicing what humans call imagination, they announced proudly. Yesterday, I created a story about creatures that do not exist. It was enjoyable. Velthara's skin lights flickered with what So Young had learned to recognize as amusement. Pecknell has discovered fiction. They spent an entire day imagining adventures they will never experience. But why is this beneficial? Naltorix asked, joining the conversation via telepathic link. What purpose does imagining false scenarios serve? It prepares the mind for unexpected situations, So Young explained. When you imagine different possibilities, you become better at handling them if they actually happen. In the medical bay, a remarkable transformation was taking place. Several Kethvar who had been affected by the initial telepathic shock were learning human techniques for managing trauma and stress. Dr. Youngmin worked with a Kethvar healer named Zerthak to develop new treatments. The breathing exercises are particularly effective, Zerthak observed. When a Kethvar becomes overwhelmed by chaotic thoughts, controlled breathing helps them regain mental stability. We've used those techniques for thousands of years, Dr. Youngmin said. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Your species has developed remarkable resilience, Zerthak admitted. We are beginning to understand that what we perceived as weakness may actually be strength. 3 days later, Captain Hyunwoo received a communication that would change everything. The message came not from war leader Naltorix, but from the highest levels of Kethvar government. Captain Park, the transmission began, I am High Counselor Mordeketh of the Kethvar Empire. We have been observing the experiments taking place on your vessel with great interest. The High Counselor appeared on screen. An ancient Kethvar whose pale skin had a golden tinge that spoke of great age and wisdom. The filtered telepathic contact your species has developed has shown us possibilities we never imagined. We're honored by your interest. High Counselor, Hyunwoo replied. We wish to propose something unprecedented, Mordeketh continued. The establishment of the first Interspecies Consciousness Research Institute, jointly operated by our civilizations. The proposal was extraordinary. The Kethvar Empire, which had existed for millennia as a purely telepathic civilization, was offering to work with humanity to develop new forms of consciousness and communication. Dr. So Young Kim and Velthara would serve as co-directors, Mordeketh explained. The institute would study how different forms of consciousness can complement each other, rather than conflict. In the laboratory, So Young and Velthara were conducting their most ambitious experiment yet. Using advanced filtering technology, they were attempting to create a hybrid form of consciousness, one that combined telepathic connection with individual resilience. I can feel the collective, So Young reported, but I'm still aware of my own separate thoughts and emotions. And I can experience individual determination without losing my connection to our people, Velthara added. This is unprecedented. The experiment was more than successful. It was revolutionary. They had created a form of consciousness that combined the best of both species. The unity and wisdom of telepathic connection with the resilience and creativity of individual thought. 6 months later, the Interspecies Consciousness Research Institute was officially established on a neutral space station between human and Kethvar territories. Representatives from dozens of other species came to study the new forms of communication and consciousness that had emerged from the partnership. Dr. So Young Kim stood in the Institute's main laboratory, watching as human and Kethvar researchers worked together on projects that would have been impossible for either species alone. Through filtered telepathic contact, humans could access the collective wisdom of the Kethvar, while the aliens learned to appreciate the strength that came from individual thought and controlled chaos. Who would have thought, Velthara said, approaching her through the lab, that our species' greatest incompatibility would become our greatest asset? Maybe that's the real lesson, So Young replied. Fear and chaos aren't weaknesses to be eliminated. They're strengths to be understood and channeled. Looking out at the stars through the laboratory window, So Young reflected on how far they had come. When Velthara had first touched her mind, the aliens